1-0 win over league leaders Arsenal is yet another statement from Aston Villa that they are here. This is complemented with a 2-1 win over Tottenham Hotspur, and this game Aston Villa went 1-0 down and managed to come back away. But the most prolific win was the 1-0 win against Manchester City. In this game showed how Unai Emery has transformed Aston Villa, dominating Manchester City on all three phases of play. Aston Villa had 22 shots on target compared to Manchester City's 2. Aston Villa went toe-to-toe with the ball against Manchester City, having 46% ball possession against Pep Guardiola. So Unai Emery has taken the Premier League by storm. Unai Emery has set out a team that no other team wants to play against. And we're going to see how Aston Villa are so good this season. And the question currently is, are Unai Emery's side title contenders this season? This is a question that has been raised by multiple pundits and media outlets. So, Unai Emery has successfully managed to rack up 15 home wins in 2023. He has the best home record in the Premier League. He has managed to win 15 consecutive games in the Premier League. So what system does Unai Emery employ? So Unai Emery employs a 4-4-2. And this is not the traditional 4-4-2 that you know about, but this is one of the most innovative 4-4-2s that we've seen in the Premier League in recent seasons. Unai Emery's 4-4-2 is a very different form of a 4-4-2, and it's a system that teams have not yet come with a way to stop. But before we start our analysis, please do not forget to subscribe to this channel for more tactical videos like this. So the first thing that we're going to analyze is Unai Emery's team in possession. We're going to see what the team does with the ball. So let's bring in the tactical board. So Unai Emery's team lines up in a 4-4-2 system. Now during build-up, what we see is that the two centre-backs drop on either side of Martinez, with the full-backs holding the width and the two holding midfielders playing close to each other. So against high aggressive teams that press them from the back, they employ a De Zerbi kind of a build-up structure. And here it is. You can see the position of Martinez, Pau Torres, and the other centre-back in the back line. You can see the position of Matikash and Lucadin, as well as the two holding pivots in Douglas Luiz and Kamara, all of them playing in that midfield position. So this build-up system is similar to what Brighton does. They hold on to the ball to bait a press, and the main aim is to create these overloads in midfield. You can see how Manchester City are aggressively pressing Aston Villa high up the pitch, but the 7 numerical advantage that Aston Villa has during build-up will enable them to beat this press easily. Look at Aston Villa building the play with as many as 7 players, with the goalkeeper acting as a third centre-back during build-up. So we know that Aston Villa like to draw opponents to press them, and this is where we see the strength of Aston Villa. Their centre-backs, especially Pau Torres, is quite competent on the ball, so their forwards occupy the position between the centre-backs and the full-back to pin the opposition backline deep. And the near side winger comes in midfield and inverts into this half space in midfield, where he can receive the ball directly from the keeper. And once he receives the ball directly from the keeper, the far side winger holds the width while the far side fullback advances. And this sees Aston Villa create this 5-man attack with one fullback and the front 4. Ollie Watkins is key since he likes to make runs. Here you can see a clear clip of Aston Villa. McGinn has received the ball in this inside position, and you can already see Diaby and Ollie Watkins are making this run behind Manchester City line. A simple pass to McGinn and Manchester City are in trouble. So Watkins is quite influential since his pace makes teams not to commit their defense line so high up the pitch. Now, the same thing happens down the other side. The far side winger, mainly Bailey, comes deep, receives the ball in this inside channel position, and advances with the ball high up the pitch. Now, in this case, the right back is the one who will push forward to generate that width so that Aston Villa can end up again with the 5-man attack against the opposition's back four. But this is not just an easy thing. This is something that requires teammates to identify triggers and move fast enough. Emiliano Martinez is also a competent goalkeeper. When his centre-backs options are closed, he can also pick these players in between the lines and immediately launch this transition moment. Unai Emery's team thrives in this transition moment. So if a team commits its fullback to follow this dropping in forward, spaces are left in the flank areas where players such as Oli Watkins and Diaby can receive these balls in this channel. And the excellent passing accuracy of Martinez can make them to receive this ball in these wide channels and immediately launch quick attacks, especially running against the opposition backline. So Unai Emery is quite effective in his system. His system is just not a system that teams can easily stop, and that's why Aston Villa are becoming a problem. So in the game against Arsenal, we saw the best of Aston Villa, especially on their goal. So here you can see Arsenal are committing two players to press Aston Villa. You can see Martinez is holding the ball so that he can press the Arsenal fullback. Martinez plays the ball to Kamara. Kamara pulls out Kai Havertz from his deep position and is able to play a simple pass to Pau Torres. Look at Pau Torres, he has time and space to receive the ball, and immediately he plays the ball to Pau Torres. Martin Odegaard has sprinted to press Pau Torres. So Pau Torres holds on to the ball to draw in a press and create that situation of weakness in midfield. So Pau Torres plays the ball over the top, and now you can see that Leon Bailey is receiving the ball in acres of space. Look at the space that he is receiving the ball to. Now, this is creating a lot of problems. Now, Rice doesn't know who he should cover. So Bailey wins the ball in this position. And if he manages to maneuver himself from this position, Arsenal are in trouble. But actually, watch what happens next. So he manages to play the ball back to Kamara. Kamara is now receiving the ball in acres of space, and Arsenal are in a disorganized system. Now Arsenal can no longer press because they are in a disorganized system. So Kamara receives the ball. He plays the ball back to the center back, and you can now see Cash is now holding the line down the right. You can see how he's giving his team a plethora of options. So Cash receives the ball in these acres of space. You can see now Zinchenko is now confused whether he should come out and cover Matikash, who's advancing with the ball in time and space, while Leon Bailey is making that run in behind. You can see now the position of Watkins. He's dragging Saliba out of position, and now Arsenal's defense line is disjointed. We have one player who's playing forward on side and the back line which is trying to play back. So you can see Gabriel and Rice are slow to cover, and now the ball has been played to Leon Bailey. So you can see now that Gabriel has to shift to try to cover. The pass is played to McGinn in front of the far post, and you can see McGinn receives the ball under composure, and now Arsenal are disorganized. So McGinn is able to turn, and he scores the first goal for Aston Villa. And this is what we're talking about when you're dealing with Unai Emery's side. From defense to attack, how they managed to beat one of the best pressing teams in the Premier League. It's quite remarkable. Now, let's look what happens when they are in more of a settled possession, meaning that they have the ball and they have the ball under control. And this is what Aston Villa likely do in these kinds of situations. So what we'll see is that Aston Villa shift their 4-4-2 from a 4-4-2 system into a 3-5-2. Now, the role of Pau Torres in this team is quite important. is quite important, since Pau Torres, his ability to hold on to the ball, his ability to stay on the ball, and his ability to draw in a press is quite remarkable. Looking at his stats, you can see his progressive passes, his passing, his defending, his dribbling. It's quite remarkable, especially a centre back who Unai Emery brought from Villarreal. He's a centre back who understands what Unai Emery wants to do. So in this case, you can see the position of Pau Torres, and you can see how he marshals the back line, his ability to hold on to the ball, draw in a press, and then create spaces in midfield and in the wide areas. So what we see is that he will draw in a player, play the ball to his centre back, who now will play the ball into a free pivot, and they beat the first line of pressure. Once they beat the first line of pressure, we see that thing they like to do, with their winger coming in midfield to occupy that half space channel, and Ollie Watkins moving into that number 9 position. Now the far side winger maintains the width, while the fullback, whose winger has inverted, advances to overlap to give width down the right. See the position of McGinn, see the position of Watkins. So McGinn can play this pass to Watkins, and look at how disorganized Manchester City's backline is. Here again, look at that for Dizabi kind of a build-up structure. You can see Pau Torres is holding on to the ball. He's now drawing in Alvarez to come forward and press him. Haaland is going to press the other centre back, and now the two pivots will be free. The fullbacks are free in this position to receive the ball. So once that happens, the other fullback moves back into the back line to form that back three, and now you have one overlapping fullback and one tucked-in fullback, since Unai Emery operates the one up, one down fullback system. The same thing also happens down the other side. So what happens on the other side, you'll see Bailey coming deep to receive the ball, or Diaby, and once he receives the ball in this position, he will occupy that channel position, while in this case, you'll find Leon Bailey, the winger, will drop deep, receive the ball directly from the center backs, and Cash will be the one who will be moving to overlap. And now McGinn will have to be the one to hold the width down the other side. Here is a clear example of how this works. See the position of Diaby and Ollie Watkins, all positioned in between Manchester City's pseudo back three system. The position of McGinn and Diaby and Leon Bailey in midfield is creating a lot of problems for Manchester City. And now you can see that 5-man front attack created, and now Lukadin is the one who stays behind to play as a more tucked-in fullback, and Matty Cash is now giving the width down the right hand side. So it is unpredictable. You don't know which fullback is going to be the one who will overlap, because both McGinn and Cash are effective in the wide areas. To understand also why they are so good in possession is that they have that box-shaped midfield with one winger who's inverted in midfield together with the Diaby and the two holding midfielders. That's why you can see Aston Villa has this 3-5 shape. And unlike Chelsea, their two attacking midfielders are slightly deeper, so they give them numerical advantages against teams that employ a two-man press. And this is how Aston Villa are easily able to play through their opponents. And to understand also this thing, we need to understand how Aston Villa are shaped immediately when they lose the ball. So what makes Unai Emery's team even stronger is how they behave in transition. They are one of the best transition teams, and I'm going to show you how. So in transition, when Aston Villa has dropped so deep, what we see is that they like to form quick triangles. And the ability to play through the press is quite remarkable, because they are always able to generate a spare man. Watkins identifies this position and immediately moves to push the defense line back, while McGinn starts wider and the fullback already moves to overlap. So their movement out in transition is quite quick, and they use one side of the pitch with overlapping fullbacks and wide wingers. Their out of possession shape is also quite remarkable. This is the reason why they are not conceding a lot of chances as you may think. So Aston Villa move into this mid 4-4-2 block. The main aim is to limit central progression as much as possible. So when they are facing more attack-oriented teams such as Manchester City, Arsenal, or Liverpool, what we're going to see is that Aston Villa are going to press in a box-shaped system. So they have a box shape of the two forwards and the two holding midfielders. But Aston Villa will not be quite as aggressive, but rather use their forwards to sit on the two pivots. So from this clip, you can see the position of Diaby and Ollie Watkins sitting on sitting on the two Manchester City pivots, with one midfielder pushing forward and the wingers coming in narrow. So the reason why one defensive midfielder pushes forward is to pick up any player who wants to drop deep. The wingers start quite narrow, and their main aim is to ensure that they limit central progression of the ball. Even when one of their forwards is pressed, the midfielder will push forward to cover. Look at this position. You can see how Aston Villa are pressing. Watkins and Diaby are in a tight system, picking up the two pivots, while also their pivots are just behind them. Their main aim is to force the ball to be played to Walker, who is less technical on the ball. So once the ball is played to the centre back, you will see now an aggressive press, and where the trigger is placed is when the ball is played to the wide areas. Aston Villa like when the opponents play the ball to the wide areas, since once the ball is played to the wide areas, they can engage in a touchline press to win the ball high up the pitch. And once they win this ball, they are quite excellent in transition, especially having key players such as Ollie Watkins in these kind of dangerous positions. And you're going to see how they do this. Now, Aston Villa generally do not like to immediately press once they lose the ball, but in some instances, especially when they are up, they know when to sit deep in a 4-4-2 rigid deep block. So this deep block is so compact that teams have find it problematic to break this block down. Here you can see Manchester City attempting to break Aston Villa's midfield block. You can see the position of Watkins, and the Diaby is covering Manchester City's pivot. So Manchester City's centre backs can have time on the ball, but their pivots cannot effect any change in the game. So what happens is that this forces opponents to go now wide, and once they go wide is when we see the strength of Aston Villa. So the fullback will pick up the winger, but if a player attempts to go to the half space, the defensive midfielder is not afraid to shift and cover this space, while the winger will track the runs of the fullback. So they have this trio of understanding where the fullback covers the winger, the midfielder covers the player in the half space, while the winger covers the advancing fullback, and this is quite remarkable. Also in this position is that you need to understand that once the winger receives the ball in this position, what you're going to see is that the winger is going to come in to try and cover this position. But this team is a very compact team, since now the winger will be the one who will move to overlap to try to cover the overlapping forward. And in some instances, we see McGinn dropping in the back line to form a back five, and this is what makes Unai Emery's team even more scintillating. So currently, Emery's team sit third in the Premier League table, having successful wins against Spurs, Manchester City, and Arsenal, games where everybody had expected them to lose. But Unai Emery's team continues to surge on. Do you think that this team are title contenders this season? Leave your link in the description area below, and thanks for watching.